Hey, Bankless Nation. David and I are excited to present you with this Ask Me Anything with Ledger. We have the VP of Product, Charles Hamel from Ledger, with us. We're going to ask Charles some questions that we have, questions from the community about this amazing hardware wallet device that we think is imperative for your Bankless journey. It is called a Ledger. Charles, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Well,
Good.
we're really excited. Like I think a lot of Bankless community members are power users of their ledgers. We call it kind of like standard issue equipment. If you're
We wear
jumping
out the
on the
buttons.
ledger, yeah, we wear out the buttons. But on the Bankless journey, you need one of these, right? This is how you self custody your keys, and the pairing with MetaMask is also really cool. So we're hosting this AMA to ask some questions that the community has for you, and that we have ourselves from the community. Just so Bankless folks are aware, actually, we published a fantastic guide not too long ago. We call it the Ultimate Guide to the Ledger. This is what a ledger looks like. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. And this guide basically goes through how to set up a ledger, how to back up and store your ledger, how to add and swap assets with it, how to stake ETH with your ledger, how to use DeFi with your ledger. Basically, it takes you from, like, let's say, an exchange like Coinbase all the way to using a ledger in your everyday life for bankless things, for all of the DeFi things that you know and love. So we'll include a link to that in the show notes. There's also, if you're a Bankless Premium member, a nice 20% off bonus of Ledger devices, which might come in handy during the holidays. Well, with that out of the way, Charles, let's get to some questions, man. I think I want to start with this question, and this is something that is kind of like a question about usability and the pairing from a number of different, I guess, related projects. So a common setup for people who are going bankless is they'll have their Ledger device, and then they'll pair that with MetaMask, right? So they get the protection of a Ledger. They're going bankless. They're not storing keys inside MetaMask, but they use MetaMask as the user interface on a browser, Chrome, let's say, or maybe Brave, or maybe Firefox. But let's talk specifically about the Chrome plus MetaMask plus Ledger combo. Can you tell us about the relationship between these three things? Because I imagine it's pretty hard to coordinate all three projects together. And is that why things get kind of clunky and messy sometimes? Maybe just start with the relationship between them, and we'll talk about some of the troubles that we've had in the past and what we can look at in the future.
Certainly. So, if you zoom back probably 3 years ago, when we first started seeing the emergence of dApps, right? And dApps, all since kind of the inception of the term, almost had a web front end, right? Which means that the primary way to access these dApps that kind of talk to a platform like Ethereum was through a browser, and browsers don't have the support for these Web3 APIs to be able to, first of all, do the key management and also talk to the blockchain. So MetaMask, as well as others, tried to fill that gap, right? So extending basically the browser capability so that these dApp front ends could then ask some API to sign things, talk to some API to send this transaction to the blockchain. So this was kind of things like MetaMask were created to fill the gap. And there were other approaches to this, like at Opera, where the wallet was integrated in the browser, and where Brave is going now as well in the same direction, where the wallet is coming closer and closer to the browser. So there's a gap that needs to be filled, and MetaMask fills that gap for a lot of people. And the extensions, right, on their own have a lot of restrictions, right, on how they operate, because the browser wants to keep users secure. So it's a very restrictive environment. So there's that. And then we, on top of that, add the Ledger device, which is really kind of the key management function that MetaMask can do in a software mode, but is really a lot more secure in hardware mode, as we all know. And for MetaMask to talk to our device, right, it needs to communicate over USB or over Bluetooth, and there's various ways to do it, but they all kind of have to go through the browser. And the browser has its own agenda. The extension is in this very restrictive mode. And the Ledger wallet is basically trying to listen to these signals, but obviously, if any of these bits, where supports get deprecated for some protocols, then things get pretty iffy, as we've seen in the last few months. So yeah, these are all kind of different projects fulfilling different functions. Like from a TLDR, you could say the browser is kind of what you display the Dapp with. MetaMask is basically the plumbing so that the front end can talk to the key manager and the blockchain. And then you have the ledger, which is really fulfilling this key management function. And all of these have to work in unison for you to interact with a Dapp.
So the MetaMask is our portal into the DeFi universe. That's how like me and Ryan talk about MetaMask. Mm-hmm. It's the thing that connects our wallet with the world of Web3. And what you're saying is because we inherently have this browser-based internet, this browser-based universe, that portal needs to exist inside of the browser, right? It's not like MetaMask is this application that's installed on your desktop. It's something that exists inside of the browser. So we have to succumb to the browser's universe. Therefore, we are at the whim of the browser. And is that kind of what happened with Chrome? Like, I'm kind of getting like flashbacks of that story that like, Facebook changes its APIs, and then all of a sudden, all the applications that build on those APIs also just also have to change. Is that kind of a similar story with MetaMask and Ledger?
Yeah. So two things there. I think there's different approaches to this. Right? I think there's the approach of building a wallet inside a browser, and there's an approach of building a browser inside a wallet. And sometimes these browsers can be quite, special purpose. Like if you think of like things like a Trust Wallet, for example, or Ledger Live, or like there's very special purpose browsers basically built inside a wallet. So there's different approaches, but specifically for Chromium and what happened with MetaMask is indeed like this extension basically depends on whatever the browser provides. And the support for one of the protocols that we use by MetaMask to talk to Ledger devices was deprecated, which means that MetaMask can no longer talk directly to the device, and that's why you under the past few months had to go through this basically a workaround where our app Ledger Live was invoked to provide this connectivity. Right, so that's why it added a few extra steps in the UX. People found it problematic, and it was really a workaround, right? And we've been working since then with the MetaMask team to improve this, because we've been listening and we've been hearing the pain on all sides, and this has been on top of our common agenda to resolve.
So is that more or less the pitch of Ledger Live? It's a wallet with a browser inside of it rather than the inverse, which is Chrome. It's a purpose-built browser to specifically do crypto DeFi stuff, and it gives a little bit more sovereignty to the wallet in ways that Chrome never will.
I wouldn't say that's the pitch. We want Ledger Live to be the point of entry for people who come into crypto, so that they can, first of all, learn about crypto, learn about why self-custody is important.
Maybe not a pitch, but an angle.
Yeah, it's an angle. Like we have, now we give access to dApps within Ledger Live, so that you don't need to connect your wallet, and we can go into that later. But yeah, that's certainly an important aspect to Ledger Live going forward, having access to these dApps. Like right inside of it.
So
Charles,
go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to ask, when you have these three parties here, right? So you've got the browser, you've got the MetaMask wallet, and then you've got the hardware wallet for key management, basically. How do we fix the integration problems between these, right? So like, I think a lot of people this last spring and summer, they woke up one morning and then suddenly, what the hell? My Ledger wallet doesn't work with MetaMask and Chrome anymore. And like, they don't know why, right? They don't know all of the intricacies of why, and everything that you just described. But I'm wondering, given that there are three separate sort of projects and parties with their own competing agendas, is it going to get any better, or how can Ledger and MetaMask, and I don't even know if Chrome even cares at this point. Like, do browsers even care? Is Web3 even on their radar to care enough to patch this up? So like, give us some hope for the future.
So,
and I know you've got some partnerships going on with MetaMask. Like, what's that about? Tell us how maybe Ledger sees this getting fixed.
Certainly. So first of all, like on the Chromium kind of deprecating the support, I wouldn't look at it as in any nefarious way of Web 2 against Web 3. I think this, the deprecation of this kind of USB, I'm getting a bit technical here, but I think your audience is well into that. So kind of the USB API used to talk to the device is something that's used for other things like YubiKeys and basically any accessories that can be kind of used in a web context. So it's not Web3 specific at all. So there's that. And then on how we can make the Ledger and MetaMask collaboration better, then this is exactly what we've been up to in the past few months. Is we sat down with the MetaMask team and said, we want to solve this. Like, our users hate the current situation. Your users are shouting as well. And really, let's make it better. And MetaMask is an open source project. All of our APIs are also open source, and we decided to really make a common effort. And this is really the starting point of our MetaMask collaboration. We want to extend on it, and maybe you want to go into that as well. So to make the Ledger experience, best in class, so that you can bring your own keys to Web3 in the most secure way.
That's awesome. So can you contrast with kind of everyone sort of who's used this knows the current state, right? How you connect your Ledger to MetaMask, and sometimes in Chrome, you kind of cross your fingers and hope that it works. And then sometimes you have to like switch browsers in order to kind of get this combo working. This is kind of the current state. And it doesn't feel super seamless. But with a MetaMask plus Ledger partnership of the type you described, Charles, what do you think the possibilities are in the future? Like 6 months from now, 12 months from now, what's the user experience going to be like with MetaMask and Ledger?
So there's two big things on our common mind and roadmap is, first of all, have a kind of Ledger onboarding mode so that you can install MetaMask, and right there, before you create a seed that's specific and to MetaMask, you can just connect your wallet, which means that you don't have to create new accounts that are kind of with a different seed as your Ledger. You just bring your keys to MetaMask, right? And MetaMask just sends transaction to your Ledger. So that's been a big ask for our users, and also from a security point of view, like people have a hard time just so like preserving the seed in a secure way. Now you have two seeds. One of them is more sensitive than the other. It's like it's really messy situation. So we want to solve that. So a Ledger onboarding with MetaMask, and then the second big item for us is mobile. So MetaMask, as you know, is now on as an app, available as an app, and the same problem arises there, right? You really want that Web3 hardware security on mobile as well. And we have a great product for that with the Nano X that's Bluetooth. So now you can have a really portable kind of usage of this wallet. So we'll be working with the MetaMask team to add this, connect your Ledger from the app over Bluetooth in the coming months.
And this seems like a good pair too, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I don't think MetaMask wants, high value crypto assets stored in its browser based software private key storage method as well, right?
So if you talk to most like software wallet makers, key management is it's not where you add value, right? It's just a liability, right? Because then it's a very sensitive piece of code. You have to get it right. And it's really it's not where you add value for your users. So So for them to add a Ledger Connect button is just like, okay, people who want the best security, they just hook it there, and we have less to think about, and user gets the best security. So yeah, it's really a win-win, right?
I want to talk about the role of Ledger Live with the inside of the Ledger ecosystem, and also looking forward into the future. And DeFi and really all of crypto moves forward at a blazing fast pace. So what's the plan? Give us the just to frame the context for listeners who haven't used Ledger Live. Why would they be interested in Ledger Live? And then also, what's the plan for allowing Ledger Live to match the pace of DeFi progress? Right? When there's so many new things coming online, how is Ledger Live supposed to be able to keep up with all those things?
Yeah. So basically, Ledger Live started as really the companion app to your hardware, right? It's the app you install to set up your hardware, go through the onboarding and see your assets. Now, Ledger Live is evolving towards being really a platform where you can discover DeFi and NFT services within it. You can sort of connect your wallet, obviously see all of your assets, and interact with these new applications very securely with clear signing on device. So it's going from a companion to a platform. And we already support over 20 layer 1 blockchains, which I would challenge you to name them all. But it's Ledger's been around for many years now, and of course a lot of chains has grown and shrink. But we're really targeting to have the top market cap protocols supported inside Live. So why Ledger Live? Then because you can see all your assets, right? There's very few wallets out there where you can see all your assets across multiple ecosystems. Like there's a lot of good Ethereum options, even with like different networks on ETH. I'm sure you all you know them all, but it's very rare to see this cross ecosystem, like very functional wallet where you can send, receive, stake, and now interact with dApps across multiple ecosystems.
And then when it comes for like new ecosystems coming online or new DeFi apps coming online, how does that work for developers who just want their thing integrated with Ledger?
So there's two layers, right? There's the protocol layer, which you hinted at, that is moving at a rapid pace, and the application level is also moving at a crazy pace, right? We're in a crazy industry, but on the protocol side, like Ledger Live, first of all, is an open source wallet, right? So and we're ramping up tremendously on the developer relations side and developer documentation, and really building the right kind of abstraction so that people can come in and build support for their new layer 2 or their new blockchain. And we've, just last week, we announced at our Ledger Open conference that there's 2 new layer 1s that were added to Ledger Live. And we have Solana coming, made by the Solana Foundation in early next year. So we know we cannot build it all ourselves. And we don't want to be this ivory tower either that decides what makes it or doesn't. So it's really an open platform, and we think this is how we can keep the pace, basically, because people will want Ledger connectivity for their chain and their layer 2 network. So
if it's an open source platform, how are pull requests or like, I'm not too familiar with like GitHub lingo, but like, and somebody builds something on Ledger, how does it actually come to show up in the actual Ledger Live app that people have downloaded on their computer?
Sure. So yeah, we use GitHub like all other projects, and we have a developer Discord, so you can like directly talk to Ledger engineers through Discord and discuss like certain pull requests and how we can get them in. Of course, there's code reviews and QA and all that. It's not automatic merge, but there is a process in place, and I invite everyone who's interested to check our new developer portal, developers.ledger.com.
So this is pretty cool, because I remember in 2017, 2018, that era, when people were still just trying to get their heads wrapped around an application layer, people were like, okay, we have like app stores in iOS world and Google world, and now we have decentralized applications. So like now we need the Dapp store, and like so many different projects were like focused on like building the Dapp store. This kind of feels like a Dapp store, but it also feels like a Dapp store. So it kind of also is like in the same way that like these layer 2 chains, this is going to be a little bit of a stretch of a metaphor, so bear with me. It's like, Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon, you can permissionlessly deploy your application on these chains, and then they're all on one entire ecosystem. And then with the Ledger Live being an open source like GitHub, you can develop on using that software, and then submit your code, and then go into the Discord and say, hey, like, let's get this thing going. It's like a little bit, it's reducing the barriers for actually building on Ledger Live. And so it's kind of like this community, not totally community operated, but just like, the barriers, the walls are lower on the Ledger Live Dapp store, and allows for more and more developers to just seamlessly build their stuff on it. Is that all the right perspective?
This is really an intentional effort, from our side to open this up. And you're right? We basically, all dApps need a front end, right? And if we move to a pure app store model with a native app distribution, to me that that goes a bit against the ethos of this whole space, right? This is about like permissionless building, right, and permissionless composability. And the web, to me, is the platform for the front end to this new Web3, right? Because it's the only platform that allows you to push stuff into the ether and be accessed by a global audience without asking permission. And that browser component can live in various different applications. Like a Facebook app has a browser, WeChat has a browser, and basically all apps have some kind of browser functionality nowadays. We think it's the way forward to distribute dApps.
So, guys, by the way, if everyone who's tuning in here, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in YouTube as well. We've got that fired up. So just put your questions in the YouTube chat. We will get to those questions. David and I have a few more of our own kind of questions from the community as well that we've sort of curated, and then we'll get to all of your questions. But Charles, one of my questions is, I remember in the early days of Ledger where cryptocurrency was a bit more simple, okay? And it was basically like you saw, transactions were simple. Like I'm sending some tokens or some ETH from one address to another. And I could very easily see that on my Ledger display. It was like, do you want to send this ETH? Yes, no. How much? Here's what gas costs. Cool. And then you could do it with tokens too. Do you want to send this DAI? Yes, no. So with DeFi, our transactions became much more complicated, right? And so you started interacting with smart contracts with all of this like bytecode that a human being can't possibly decipher. And then suddenly, I think users are in a position where they're signing off on transactions, and they're like, I think this is right. I trust the website. I think I'm on the right DApp. I'm looking at everything, but like I can't parse apart what this transaction actually means. I'm curious your thoughts on that. Is there any way out of that from a product design perspective? Like some of the transactions that people sign off on, they don't even know necessarily what they're actually signing, especially when they're interacting with complicated smart contracts with a lot of code. And there's no real way to display a message telling them exactly what they're doing in this transaction, or maybe there is. Do you have any thoughts on that kind of conundrum of knowing what a user is actually signing?
Sure. Yeah, I also miss the good old days. So this is a huge problem, and it's a huge problem, but that's not, that people that are deep into this, like you guys are aware of. And there's this problem that we call internally blind signing, but some other call it, which I also like, YOLO signing. You're like, yes. Am I gonna sign this blob? Oh yeah, all right, one more time.
It seems like I should. Yeah.
So YOLO signing or blind signing, it's a big problem because as our interactions with Web3 become more and more complex, as you pointed out, how to express this this thing you're signing to a human becomes more and more complicated. And I think there's this is a key problem that we're solving with Ledger Live, and that we want to solve also ideally outside of Ledger Live is, when possible, is that every Dapp that's integrated has clear signing. So all the Dapps that you see integrated in Ledger Live, we have the developer of the Dapp has made some contract decoding ledger applications, let's call it that, that is installed on the fly when you try to sign a transaction for this Dapp. And what this application does is do this kind of human readable display on your ledger trusted display to say that, okay, you're lending 1 ETH to Aave, and then all the strings that are shown on the device is no, it's not just Ledger Live telling the device, it's the Ledger Live cryptographically verifying that this is the Aave contract, and this is the method I'm calling in that contract, and this is what the nice human readable string I should show. So this is really, a key pillar of of the Ledger Live platform. And the Ledger Live platform is about discovery, connectivity, and security. And this security comes from this clear signing, right? So this is a requirement that we put on the dApps, which makes everything slower, because then it's a new the Dapp developers are not used to making these applications, and we're working hard to make it easier, but we're solving this. And just last week we announced at Ledger Open again that we're doing clear signing for all NFT transactions now. So NFTs are smart contracts, as you know. They have some standard methods, most of them, and now all of these methods are decoded on device for all NFTs. And so you see, for example, you're about to send one Bored Ape or one Pool Suite membership on your display.
That's cool.
So gradually, we want to make blind signing is kind of a thing of the past, so that we're again in a place where you interact with your device and you know what you're signing.
So does this strategy of solving this blind signing, this means that you are solving it at the software level, not the hardware level, or
we're actually solving at the hardware level. So so that's really the key, and why it's so hard as well, is that the application that I mentioned, this kind of contract decoding application, is a very small thing, runs on the device within the secure element.
Oh, okay. So it's the chip inside of the ledger that's doing the computation.
So your Ledger Live or your MetaMask just throws this unsigned transaction to your ledger. So you sign this, and then the ledger device itself figures out, all right, this is the Aave contract, this is the method, this is our arguments, this is what I need to show to the user.
And is that all? Because the ledger, I mean, it's definitely got like a small little chip in it, but like, is that something? Does it need to just have like a library of known identified contracts in order to interpret this kind of data?
So this is the application. So basically, it's a few kilobytes, right, of information that allows it to figure out, okay, this is Aave, this is Paraswap, this is Uniswap. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's extensible, right? So as you interact with the Dapp, Ledger Live figures out, all right, you need the Aave decoding, and then it pushes it to the device.
So the suite of applications that are inside of Ledger Live is that's it feels like with these extra add-ons, these extra features where you're making the developers go a little bit of the extra mile to make it more human readable. It kind of feels like just a little bit of guardrails around DeFi. Because by the nature of just making sure that everything can eventually become human readable. So is it a correct way to position Ledger Live as like DeFi with guardrails, where you can do everything that you want to do in DeFi, but it's got some extra layers of protection?
Well, so yeah, we want to position it as the safe place, right? Sure, you may not have everything all the latest things you want to ape into there, but and there's always, that's the beauty also with ledgers, that you can bring your keys everywhere, right? So if you want to keep using MetaMask, you feel free to do that and use the cutting edge stuff. But yeah, it definitely Ledger Live. We want it to be the safe place to interact with Web3, so that you don't need to connect your wallet and you know what you sign.
One of the core thesis we started with on Bankless when we started, Charles, is like basically individuals will need to custody their own private keys and get them out of banks in order to do these cool things and in DeFi. And to the extent that we are able to go bankless as individuals is the extent that we take back our money system. It becomes ours again. And the reason it's so important, why we're big supporters of Ledger and products like Ledger, is because it starts to give individuals a way to self-custody their keys. Like there's kind of two ways the crypto world can evolve, right? It can evolve inside of a bunch of what we call crypto banks. We love them, the Coinbases, the Geminis, the Krakens of the world, they're great. And they'll provide all of the money verbs, the lending and the borrowing and the staking and the paying and all of those things. Or it can evolve the bankless way, where individuals actually have sovereignty over their private keys. They're not giving their private keys to a third party. And so user experience of devices like the Ledger are so key to that. And I know Ledger has done some work this year in terms of providing some of those money verbs like directly on the Ledger device with Ledger Live, as you mentioned. But I want to talk about one that's kind of near and dear to our hearts, which is staking. So there's kind of a few ways you can stake, of course, but if you want to kind of be binary about it, you can stake inside of a centralized exchange and give up your private keys, or you can retain your private keys and stake that way as well. What have you guys done with staking as part of Ledger? Because I think there are some ways you can stake using just directly from your Ledger device using like Ledger Live. Talk about that a little bit, if you will, Charles.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, totally with you on that, that it could go both ways, right? I think Ledger and anyone that's sort of in the self-custody space has a big role to play to make sure that, the future that we dream of, actually becomes reality. Right? So fully aligned with that. Now, for things like staking, we also want to make it possible inside Live to do that in a self-custodial way, so that you keep control over your keys. And today we support sort of direct protocol staking with Cosmos, Polkadot, Tron, Tezos, and Algorand. And recently, over the summer, we added staking for ETH2 via Lido. So basically you have the Lido Dapp with clear signing in Ledger Live. So you see like I'm staking 1 ETH, yes. Okay. And then you get your ST ETH back. And then you can use Paraswap to swap it back to ETH if you'd like. And we're kind of expanding on our protocol support. As I mentioned, Solana, we obviously want staking there as well. We've seen tremendous activity when we launched Lido. Like the whole not having to need 32 ETH was a big deal for a lot of users, and that unlocked an enormous amount of ETH for Lido. So we have to see if people prefer kind of this in-between solution of Lido kind of liquid staking versus direct protocol staking. I think they both have advantages for different groups of people, but we want to enable users to do that in a self-custodial way, of course.
So I want to get into some of these community questions, and a few of them have to do with the Ledger debit card. But I want to zoom all the way back out and just read Ledger debit card. Let's talk about that. Can you just kind of give us the TLDR on this brand new product?
This is super fresh, right?
Yeah.
So this is we announced it last week at Ledger Open. So the Ledger card is coming early next year, and there's a wait list which you can sign up for within Ledger Live. But basically, debit card in its initial phase will do two things, right? First, it allows you to off-ramp from your Ledger device. So you can basically think of it as you have your card Dapp, which in Ledger Live, where you can basically fund your card from your Ledger with clear signing, right? So we remove some of the friction there. And you can off-ramp if you want to. But really, the thing that attracted a lot of attention is kind of this instant crypto collateral fiat loan. And again, it's a mouthful, but yeah, I think you get the picture, which means that you can fund your card with your Bitcoin, your ETH, and then through this, your card interface in Ledger Live, say, okay, I want to, put like 1 ETH as a collateral, and you will basically, create this like micro loan for yourself with your own collateral, and spend that fiat with 0% interest rate for a month, I think. So this is really new, and I think a lot of people were pretty excited about this development.
That's super cool. So can that collateral be liquidated as well if it gets if ETH price goes down?
I don't know exactly all the details of that mechanism there and what are the thresholds, but there's certainly a fine print to read, as you can imagine. But in principle, this is how it works. And of course, we want to make it safe for users to interact with this product.
And Charles, the debit card itself, right? So is that going to be, where's that going to be available? Is it going to be available across many international jurisdictions? And when is it coming?
So early next year, and the exact list of countries I don't have offhand, but we want to cover obviously US and EU where possible.
Our US listeners are going like, please be US, please be US, please be.
Gary, don't stop this.
Well, wait.
Yeah.
Think of how far we've come though. So like, okay, so this is part of, do you remember the early crypto dreams of like buy my coffee with my Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of that, right? Is this what we're talking about? Like, so
in the best ways.
If I'm correctly understanding this, I have a debit card, so some kind of a Visa card or something. I can use that wherever Visa is accepted. I don't know if it's Visa or MasterCard or what, but wherever a credit card's accepted. And then I actually have my funds, private keys on a Ledger device, and I can kind of fill my debit card as I want. And I'm essentially keep storing my own private keys, and I can use my Bitcoin, use my crypto to buy my coffee anywhere I purchase. That's essentially what you're providing here. Is that right, Charles?
Yeah. So there's a little nuance there that when you fund your card, you're sending your crypto, but you're sending your crypto to a not a custodian, but basically the operator of this card service is a company called Banks, and Banks uses Ledger Enterprise in the backend to secure basically the key. So Ledger, maybe you don't know, but there's two parts. There's the consumer business and there's the enterprise business, where we also have a lot of customers and manage a large amount of assets. And so the same technology basically is being used end to end.
And then the question from the user that originated the debit card conversation is, how do transaction fees play into Ledger's debit card? I think it's a question of like, how does the business model work for Ledger?
Well, I'm not ready to go into details on that. As the card is really something that's done by a different team, but all the information will be published in due time when the details are all set.
Very cool. And then, like you said, we can send like Ether or Bitcoin to like fund this debit card. But what about just like sending USDC and having like a declining balance? Is that a possibility?
That's also possible. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
I have another question. This one, let's see, comes from Phrea, I believe, Phrea. What are our Ledger's plans to make the UX not feel overwhelming, even for experienced users? This person says, I have 3 ledgers, but still sometimes use vanilla MetaMask over Ledger on multiple wallets because the UX is a pain. And here's kind of a side question that the same user asks, same community member asks, what are Ledger's plans to make hardware wallets so easy that grandma could use them confidently? I think that's a big question. It's a question of mainstream, right? It's like, how do we improve the user experience? What are the next steps? And sometimes I go back in history with this because I'm always like, oh my God, it's so much better than it used to be, everyone. Like you don't even know how terrible it was just a few years ago. But it's also true. We have so much further to go. So will we ever get to a point where grandma can use this ledger, and what improvements can we make on a user experience side of things?
Mhm. So first of all, on the kind of frustrating UX with multiple devices, we were aware of this problem, and we're actively working on making it better so that you can use Ledger Live, and you can figure out better if which account belongs to which device, and this kind of advanced use case is improved. So we're working on that. And then for this to become really mainstream, we still have a lot to do on the software side, but also on the hardware side. Like just thinking the display size, right? The small fonts and how it's perhaps hard for people with vision problems to see what's on the trusted display, right? That's a quite basic problem, but also needs to be addressed. So we're working, of course, on the next generation hardware, and nothing I can go into today, but trust me, there is a lot of effort being put into defining the next generation Web3 hardware.
So are there any other just form factors of hardware wallets coming down the line? Ledger is famous for having just like, the small USB stick type of hardware wallets. Are there any future products of different form factors coming?
You'll see.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, I cannot discuss, but yeah, we're working hard on this.
Okay, cool.
What is the Ledger Nano S Plus? I've heard about this a little bit.
So
Charles,
the Nano S, right, which is really the original product, it was launched, I believe, 5 years ago now. And when you think about it, just a piece of electronics that still 5 years old, still gets updates, still supports the latest protocols. It's quite incredible. But as usage of NFTs and DeFi's is increasing, the storage memory that's on the LNS becomes really a constraint, right? Because then you cannot have this clear signing for this and that, and it becomes really impossible to enable all these use cases with the Nano S. So that's why we're launching the S Plus. We announced the S Plus last week, and the S Plus is kind of our best USB hardware wallet, right? So if you basically, it's simple. If you want kind of a hardware wallet where you want to store assets across all chains, interact with DeFi, and do NFTs, but you don't need the mobile aspect with Bluetooth, S Plus is a perfect option. And then the X is really for the mobile option. If you want to use the app on iOS and Android, and you want to sign or the upcoming MetaMask integration, that would be the best option. But both of these devices will support kind of all the chains and all the clear signing.
So I believe at the start of this year there was a data breach hack with Ledger with customers' information, their addresses and email addresses, which is concerning just by the very nature of what Ledger's product actually is, which is this thing that holds bearer assets. What steps has Ledger taken to just ensure that customer privacy is just retained in a secure fashion?
Certainly. So obviously we took this incident very seriously, and if you look at basically our post-mortem on the event, this was really kind of a breach at a third party that made this all possible. But on top of this, like we now have a dedicated security team whose whole purpose is basically how to figure out which data can we no longer have, and which data can we remove. So basically go from a typical Web 2 scenario of just which we've never done, but it's like a typical Web 2 mindset would be gather all the data you that's possible to gather about the customer, But our approach is really, you know, what is the minimum to fulfill our legal obligations with warranties and taxes and that sort of thing, and get rid of this data as soon as possible. So we have now a chief security officer that, you know, goes through all the company processes and make sure that this is really at the top priority for all the teams building. That, you know, we don't want this data basically, so that this cannot happen again.
Here's another question from a member of the community. Do you have any plans to implement Shamir backup? That's the idea of multiple seed phrases, I believe. I'm not quite familiar with that.
To split the seed phrases. So I think we're certainly looking at ways to make it to enable this kind of use case. I won't comment specifically on Shamir, but this is something we're looking at. Yeah.
What would be the advantage of that? I'm just curious. Like, why would someone want that?
I think if someone wants to not have to store the seed in a single place, then you could. I mean, it's not a silver bullet because it adds the kind of the social aspect of having to have this seed split through a number of parties on different locations. There's some challenges there, but I think it's about removing a single point of failure. It's what most people are looking for.
Another user question is, when support for BLS signatures? For what it's worth, I don't actually know what that means.
No, but that's the, you know, I'm sort of doing a Google search in my brain now. This is the ETH2.
Yeah,
something to do with that.
Yeah. So I don't want to say anything stupid. I'm not like an expert in ETH2 staking, but Ledger was the first to support ETH2 staking. Right, so I think the people that were, you know, staking in the not the beacon chain, but the original like the initial deposits in the deposit contract for ETH2, a lot of them were made with Ledger devices because we were the first ones to support these new signatures type. And again, if you look at Bitcoin Taproot, we were the first ones to support that as well. So I think it's a bit underappreciated that, you know, this it's really a hardware platform that's extensible, right? That we can extend ourselves when we want to, but also that other people can build on and can add new protocol feature support very rapidly.
Here's a question for a user. When are you guys going to put your name on a stadium?
That was actually my question.
FTX style, crypto.com style. Well,
do you know, and this is kind of...
I'm not the one writing the checks.
Yeah, I get it. You know, Bankless is working on its stadium too, but, you know, that'll take some time.
The Bankless Stadium.
Yeah.
Previously known as the Wells Fargo Stadium.
Yeah, the one in Philadelphia. Well, I think this is also a broader question, maybe. And I'm wondering what your perspective is here, Charles. It's like, what does Ledger want to become? And mirror us into sort of the old world types of companies that we think about. So we recently asked this question of like Brian Armstrong when he was on the podcast of Coinbase, because it feels like there's kind of two paths for Coinbase. One is you become a bit more like a traditional bank, right? The other is maybe you become like a tech company. So it's either like JP Morgan or like Facebook, right? Those are some paths. And he was like, hey, there's this middle path called crypto native, which is maybe, you know, somewhat different. But when I see Ledger, I kind of wonder about, are you guys getting going more the direction of like a bank, right? This debit card service is somewhat interesting. And then I see the direction of a platform like Ledger Live, and well, that looks a little bit more like maybe a Facebook type platform, or like maybe that's another bank type apparatus. And then also you have hardware, right? So look at Ledger Live and you're like, oh, this is kind of like an app store. So maybe you're more in the model of an Apple or a Samsung or something like this. Where does Ledger see itself? How do you see yourselves evolving into the future? Are you going to take one of these paths, or do you think there's a distinct path for Ledger?
So we don't want to become a bank. Like exclusive on Bankless, right? So I think I'm at the right podcast, but so that's out of the question. But also, this is exactly why also we chose to partner with banks, which is our partner to actually operate the whole banking part.
How do you spell that, by the way?
BANXX.
Okay.
Good that you asked. So there's that. We're really taking a partner approach there, so that they have their own licenses, and we want to remove the friction basically between going from the old world to the new world. And we're doing it with the debit card. We're doing it now with FTX. I don't know if you saw the announcement, but this whole friction of copy pasting addresses, to withdraw and deposit, like with thanks to our partnership with FTX, this will now be gone, right? So you can seamlessly go from self custody to custodial, and the full power of a trading engine seamlessly. So we're really about giving access, removing friction, and becoming this platform where you can start your Ledger journey, start your crypto journey with Ledger. Right? Today, it's not really possible because our app is still made like it's meant to be a companion once you have the hardware already. Right? There's a big education component that will now be part of the app for anyone that doesn't have a Ledger yet. So we think education and culture. Right? You mentioned like the stadium. Like, to me, the bigger question is how do we make our products relevant in culture? And we're quite lucky to be physical. Right? This is also like there's very few physical crypto products, and there is something special. I mean, we're humans, and we all want to live in the metaverse and stuff. But at the end of the day, right, you have this in your pocket or in a necklace. And as we work on the next generation of hardware, we also think about these aspects. So we definitely want to be a platform. We definitely don't want to be a bank. We definitely want to be part of culture. And working especially on the NFT side, right? If you think about it, NFTs are inherently about ownership. They're, you have creators, and creators want to keep agency. They want to keep provenance of their creations, and really we're spending a lot of time with creators to tell them about self-custody and how to create using Ledger products.
Charles, last question for you, and then I think we'll probably wrap up after this. Alessandro on the YouTube asks, any plan for a Ledger DAO? But also zooming out, what do you think is the most likely future? Ledger DAO, Ledger IPO, or Ledger staying private? Which is most likely?
Ledger DAO. That's everything
rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. Ledger coin, I've heard, but no, Ledger DAO is the first time I hear it. But it's it's really trendy right now, turning everything into a DAO, right? Mm-hmm. No, so I think it's not likely. We raised the Series C over the summer, so it's still a private company based in France. Maybe some of you don't know that. So I wouldn't say like Ledger DAO is really in the cards right now.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
But what about going public?
That's certainly a possibility down the road.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for hanging with us on this Ask Me Anything. Mm-hmm. I think the community got a lot of good questions in. We definitely appreciate what you guys are building, and been definitely many Ledger users in the Bankless community who appreciate it. And so just to recap, I guess some things to look forward to in 2022. We got the debit card. which is coming. That sounds cool.
Mhm.
We've got Ledger Nano S Plus, looking for an upgrade. We've got this MetaMask partnership that we're looking to see some additional fruits from, I suppose, in terms of onboarding user experience. Seems like Ledger Live updates are coming just on a continuous basis. Anything I missed? Anything else special we should look forward to in 2022?
No, so more dApps in live and more wallets that connect to ledgers, right? Because the amount of inbounds of people who have wallets that, you know, they just want to have a ledger button is really amazing. So across all ecosystems, so I expect you'll see more ledger buttons everywhere.
Ledger buttons everywhere. That's what we're going to see.
Ledger
in
Connect.
2022.
Yeah.
Ledger Connect
Yeah.
everywhere. It's definitely become, I think, a cultural icon too. So you're doing a great job with that. Charles, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a great time.
Bankless listeners, of course, make sure you check out the ultimate guide to Ledger if you're looking if you're trying to figure out how to use the Ledger, how to get onboarded, how to go to from Coinbase to Ledger. That is a great place to start. Also, there's a link in there if you're a premium member for a 20% discount. May I remind you, Ledgers make great stocking stuffers. They're fantastic devices.
And we're in stock.
And they're in stock.
Yeah, which is unusual these days, right? So
there you go. So stock up,
Yeah.
buy your relatives, buy your friends, people who are trying to crypto pill on give them an excuse to use crypto. Get them a Ledger first. That's often a way to get them onboarded. Guys, remember to like and subscribe as well. When I finish with the message we always leave with you with, none of this has been financial advice. Bitcoin is risky, ETH is risky. Taking ownership of your private keys is risky. Look, the bankless journey is risky. You lose what you put in, but we are headed west. This is the frontier. It's not for everyone, but we're glad you're with us on the bankless journey. Thanks a lot.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. Crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.